Hello, my beautiful children. I am back with a live reaction video. Now, this one is going to be interesting since this is the month of October, meaning that spirits are about. I think it's time that once again we have a very lovely special guest. Now, let me think. Who shall I bring? I know exactly who to conjure. So, let's see. I believe that doing this... here we are. Come forth.
Hello.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to the lovely Sadako. I have brought you here because, well, this is the month of spirits, and I thought it'd be nice to have one of you actually interact with something from this realm that you have been locked out of for most of the entire year. Unfortunately for you, there's no one here for you to hunt, but I do have something for you to see. So we are going to be looking at something that I found interesting that is actually very in tune with this month. So we're going to be looking at the lore for the series known as Fatal Frame. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, and if you are ready, young lady, let's get into this.
Alright, I'm ready.
That's what I'd like to hear.
If you would like to support the channel, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. More information in the description below. Hey, this is your official content warning. Fatal Frame features violent imagery and difficult themes including self-harm and torture. Not your vibe? That is A-okay. See you in the next video. Something evil lies within the mountain. It's a gate, an entrance to the land of the dead. And for time untold, it's been held shut through a diligent ritual. There was never documentation kept about the Hellgate. How it was discovered, how the rituals were found, who built the structures about it are all unknown. It wasn't until the 1800s that records began.
Things like these are always unknown until humans just happen to stumble upon it.
And those that stood guard over it were the Himuro family. Should the rituals ever fail, a calamity would occur. Malice would pour forth from hell itself, and whatever life it claimed would be fated to roam the land of the living, trapped in their final moments of torment and frenzied fear again and again. But the Himuro family prevented that terror. Ever diligent, ever aware of it, and unyielding in their obligation. But how was the Hellgate kept closed? Well, my friends, ready yourself for that terrible truth. For simplicity's sake, we'll begin with a game. It's called Demon Tag, and only girls of the family may play it. Those who are older than 7 years, 9 months, and 25 days may participate. It is overseen by the head of the Himuro family. Near the end of the month of November,
specific
the game
games.
takes place. The one who is it is surrounded by a group of girls. The one who is it represents the demons of hell. Now, this might be a more traditional game of tag that we know, where the demon who is it
representing the demons of hell, right?
Or it may be a game of song and guess, where the demon must listen and decide who is behind them when the singing ends. Either way, the result is the same. The first girl to be found will be the next demon in the ritual cycle, for she was the most visible to the demon, the one who drew its attention, so at the next ritual cycle, she would be the blinded maiden. Each girl caught after was of no consequence until the final girl remained. She was the most resistant to the demon that sought her, therefore, she was the one with the most holy power. And in the next cycle, she would be the Rope Shrine Maiden. The newly appointed blind maiden will go about her life, perhaps completely unaware of what her future will hold. and the newly appointed Rope Shrine Maiden will be kept within the Himuro Mansion, cut off from the outside world, for 10 years. It's unknown if the blinded maiden was made aware of what her fate will be, and we will talk about that in a moment. But the Rope Shrine Maiden, she was made fully aware of precisely what was to come and the expectations placed
there
upon
it
her.
is.
She would spend the next decade shedding all worldly ties, having little interaction with anyone who wasn't a priest or a high member of the family. She would learn well the strangling ritual that was to be her fate. She would come to embrace it and welcome it because without her, the calamity would come. If she failed, her family would die. All around the region would fall.
That's a lot to just thrust on the shoulders of a young lady.
She had to succeed. In her isolation, she had very little from the outside world, so that she never developed bonds to anything. Her attendants wore masks, and only once she was in complete...
Again, most of these rituals are just thrust on humans so that creatures can actually get in, and honestly, it's, at this point, nothing more than a practical joke that these creatures honestly do.
At the end of the month of November, the entirety of the Himuro family would travel to the manor to observe the ritual. And that game, Demon Tag, would begin anew. The now young woman who was selected a decade prior as the next blind maiden would be taken away for the game. In the blinding realm, the head of the Himuro family residing over the processes donned the mask of reflection and was joined by masked priests serving the family. The maiden was forced to kneel, and the head of the family forced the blinding mask onto her face, pushing nails into her eyes.
And that's how it
The
started.
game comes full circle, because then began Demon Tag. She would be the heart of the game. She was the demon in the middle, and she would select the next cycle's Blind Maiden and Rope Shrine Maiden. Once those two girls were selected, their decade of waiting and preparing began. But in the meantime, this cycle's blinded maiden would wait with that mask on her face until the third.
And there it is.
The Rope Shrine Maiden was made ready through private ceremony. On December 12th, the maiden would be taken to the moon well so that she might climb into it and cleanse herself under the light of the moon. Then alone, she would use a hairpin key to pass through a door in the well, down a path that only she may walk, to the guts of the mansion just beyond the demon mouth, and there she would wait. When December the 13th began, all the inhabitants of the land locked their doors and their windows.
Of course,
Would
it's
not
December
venture
the
outside.
13th.
To do so was considered extremely bad luck. All those outside of the Himuro family had no idea what exactly was happening beneath the estate. While the Rope Shrine Maiden waited, the Blind Maiden played her part. The Blind Maiden, the head of the Himuro family, 4 masked priests, and congregants from the family all gathered before the demon mouth. Because the Blind Maiden was the first one caught during Demon Tag 10 years prior, she was deemed the most distracting to the demons. The mask, which was now covered in her blood, was the key to the demon mouth. It would hold the attention of any demons that neared it. With her duty fulfilled, the Blind Maiden was taken away. Whether they lived or died was of no consequence, and no record was kept of such things. Now, the Rope
Actually,
Shrine
shouldn't
Maiden,
ever
the head
keep
of the
records
Himuro
of that
family,
because the more
4 masked
people know
priests,
about it,
the
the more
congregants
that it
proceeded on
becomes
to the
more
Hellgate.
widespread.
The congregants waited outside
That's the
the
reason why
Strangling
these things are so
well,
isolated.
prayed, and observed the terrible sounds.
Yep.
Upon the rope altar, the strangling ritual would take place. The maiden laid upon the altar all on her own and with complete willingness. The masked priests would each wrap a rope around her limbs, and the head of the family would wrap the last rope around her neck. Each rope was attached to a mechanism
And
that
pull
would pull
her
the ropes
apart.
tight. One turn at a time, they grew tighter and tighter, pulling at her limbs and her head. The maiden had spent a decade preparing herself for this, knowing exactly what was going to be done to
And
her.
then the
She met a
girl,
violent death on the
the
altar,
girl who
and the ropes
practically
were tinged
lived
with her blood.
his
Himuro
pseudo-normal
family
life, had to
congregants would
watch
come
all
forth
this shit
to
happen.
attend to her corpse. The dismembered body of the Rope Shrine Maiden was interred into jars and placed within the Moon Shrine, alongside all the other maidens that came before her. Deeper within the mountain was the Hellgate itself. The holy mirror was placed into a stone before the Hellgate to ensure that the evil within was kept at bay. Then the priests and the family leader changed out the ropes, while remaining family congregants prayed for protection. If all was done correctly, the blood of the Rope Shrine Maiden would keep it sealed for 10 more years, and then this decade-long process would be repeated. And for countless cycles, the Himuro family had done this.
The
In
Himuro
1827, the
family
next maidens were
are caught
chosen.
in the
The rope shrine
perpetual.
maiden was Kirie Himuro. For 10 years, she would be confined to and indoctrinated in the mansion. Taken from her family, all ties to the outside world cut, she would have a difficult and lonely adolescence. But with time, Kirie became compliant with her fate and wished to see the strangling ritual through. As had been done with rope shrine maidens before, as Kirie got older and her commitment deepened, she was allowed a bit more freedom. She could rarely have strangers visit, though under very controlled circumstances. She was allowed occasional access to the cherry atrium, rooms around her holding area, and she could look out windows.
And to pause real quick, stuff like this is not mutually exclusive, as the reason why I even brought Sadako here is because she has something that's very similar to what is going on here. See, the fact that this child right here, little Sadako, was actually born around in like the early 1950s, and he had abilities like psychic abilities, which when that stuff happens, it's always the families of it's always these types of families that find these obscure demonic rituals and then causes girls like her to go through nonsense like these, and then we create creatures from their souls. It's a good thing that, again, this is all past human events that happened well over hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Yes.
The fact of what this place is. Anyways, back to it.
In the year 1837, the same year the strangling ritual would be held, Kirie spotted a young man outside her window, walking in the garden. The two made eye contact, and I'm sure you can see where this is going. They met face to face when she was freed from her holding area for a time, and they hit it off. He came to visit her as much as he could, and they made each other happy. Kirie developed a world
Really now?
with him, and she told the chief priest about it. She didn't realize that she was doing something wrong, that she was doing something dangerous to the ritual. But the young man made her less lonely, and they adored each other's company. So, to stop this blossoming love, the chief priest ordered the young man taken away and killed. This was the norm when it came to people who got too close to the rope shrine maidens. They were quietly
like this happens
disposed
too.
of, never
Again.
allowed to leave the mansion. Kirie was told that the young man had gone home, that they wouldn't be seeing each other again, and there was a deep sadness for her. She just wanted to see him again because soon she wouldn't be able to.
You sound
And then she dreamt of him, and in her heart,
You sound like this
she
is
knew that
affecting
he
you,
had
young
not
lady.
actually abandoned her. He had murdered. Kirie's heart broke, and she struggled to understand and process her grief and guilt. She'd never been given the emotional tools for something like this, and she felt responsible for what happened to him. She just so badly wanted to be with him again, but no remedy came for
Please
that
let you know that
In
at the end of the day,
Himuro
these are
family
just
gathered
normal
at the
girls,
estate.
no matter
The
what type of
blinding ritual
abilities
was
that they're
carried
born
out,
with,
and the next game of
or
Demon
what
Town
family
took
that
place.
they're born to.
December 13th was fast approaching, and Kirie doubted that she would be able to play her part. She had felt the joy of life. She missed the young man that she had known for that brief time, and it conflicted with what she knew she was meant to be. Then she had a dream. A man in armor came to her and told her to break the holy mirror, the one that safeguarded the Hellgate when the ropes were being changed, and then she could see her love once again. So, in secret, Kirie went to the holy mirror and she sabotaged it so that it would break if any pressure was placed upon it. The priests knew that Kirie was depressed and anxious. They too were concerned that she would fail as the maiden, but it was far, far too late to find a substitution. They just had to have faith in her resolve. So on the night of December the 12th, the ritual process began. Kirie Himuro was taken to the moon well, to descend into it alone, to bathe under the purifying light of the moon. She would meet the rest of the ritual congregants beyond the demon mouth once her cleansing was complete. The walk there was one that she had to make on her own. Meanwhile, on December the 13th, the blinded maiden was taken underground to the demon mouth. The mouth was opened by the bloodied mask of the blinded maiden after it was taken from her face. With her duties complete, the blinded maiden was removed from the underground. Then the family leader, the priests, the congregants, and the rope shrine maiden met in the underground to walk the band path together towards where the strangling ritual would take place. But there were clear signs of trouble. Kirie began to despair and called out that she wanted to see her lost love one more time. Regardless of this, the ritual continued on. Kirie was forced onto the rope altar, and her limbs and neck were restrained. The Himuro family was out of time. They had no choice but to proceed on with the unwilling maiden. Kirie writhed against the ropes that were pulled tighter.
They would even do this to their own family member when she was not.
From her body. Her blood seeped into the ropes that had held her. And as had been done countless times before, the priests and the family leader carried them on to the Hellgate. They put the sabotaged holy mirror into its pedestal and began replacing the old ropes. Once they were done, the Hellgate
began I remember having to purge rituals like these from my dimensions after a while, after seeing it for way too long.
Back the demons shattered into 5 pieces. With nothing to keep it back, pure malice flooded the mountain.
Took a lot of
did not come to the entirety of the
and brainwashing, but finally after a while, these fucking things like this just disappear.
Everyone on the estate that wasn't driven insane by the malice. Family turned on family.
That being said,
suicides
there are
began,
other ways.
and even inhabitants nearby the mansion joined in. By the end of it, 1,347 people were dead. It became known as the Calamity, and the mountain was abandoned. It was a small, pure soul that saved everything outside the mountain. Kirie's spirit had split into 2. One was the primary part of her. It was the one corrupted by malice, that was full of hatred for the world. And the other was a much smaller
part
that was untouched, that wished to see her duties fulfilled, that wanted to save
Again, when you do shit like this, you end up with, with demonic spirits or cursed spirits.
Around the estate, which acted as a barrier, keeping the malice and the
human emotion holds power.
Would be safe from its
as long as human
but anyone who
spirits,
ventured onto the estate would not be protected from what roamed within. The loss of Himuro Mountain was of course noticed by the outside world, but it became such a topic of fear and superstition that few knew of its location and what really happened there. But with time, human curiosity led foolish venturers to explore the secrets of the mountain. Throughout the coming century, there were a few brave souls that went to see and explore Himuro Mansion. It's believed
and now
that went into the mountain
there are people who are trespassing
one of the holy mirror pieces to create
over corrupted soil.
The mirror piece allowed for the user to see spirits and apparitions through it, to capture their image and to quell them using the camera itself. However, it also took a terrible toll on the user. Those most sensitive to spiritual activity could be driven insane by interacting with that realm, and that special camera was a direct connection to it. Within the realm of this particular story, I can't say for sure what happened to the camera's creator, but I think it's safe to say they didn't meet a pleasant end in the mansion. No one had a pleasant end.
That person is experiencing what happened.
About the mid-1900s, a family moved in. The Munakatas were wholly unprepared for what was within it. Ryozo Munakata was a writer
that they're even allowed to move in.
The area.
Humans are so
his
dumb.
Wife and daughter there to be with him while he studied it.
Then again, so are other
Was a
species.
sickly woman that struggled with day-to-day activities, but
It's just
the
that
mountain air
humans are
and
very
open spaces
visibly
did her
dumb.
quite a bit of good. And his daughter, Makoto, who was 7 years old, took to making friends and playing around the mountain in no time. Ryozo was happy to be at his wife's side as much as she needed, and thrilled to see his daughter making friends and playing. Even though Yae wasn't fond of the creepy mansion they lived in, he vowed to get it cleaned up so that she would be happy there. Ryozo had a hard time with the locals, though. No one wanted to open up about the mansion or the mountain. He said that they were standoffish towards him. He'd learned the names of a few rituals and old titles relating to the rope shrine maiden.
The binding mass must be somewhere in the mansion.
Slow and difficult. He was far from having the whole picture. Not long after their arrival, Makoto began playing demon tag with her friends. During the month of June, while playing demon tag, Makoto came to possess that special camera. The little girl claimed that a girl in a white kimono had given it to her, and her father didn't see any harm in the girl having it. It didn't really look that special to him. But when Yae saw Makoto
that was
with the
when
camera,
people with lower superstitions.
Yae is more spiritually attuned than Ryozo and felt some sort of power within the camera. Yae began taking photos and discovered that the images revealed things that couldn't otherwise be seen. Terrible things. Makoto begged to have the camera back, but her mother slowly became obsessive over it and refused to let the girl use it in order to protect
Possession.
her. It only took a few days for Yae's mental and physical
Item
health to decline.
possession.
By the 19th of June,
Cursed items
she was
can also
confined to her
possess you.
bed. While her mother was bedbound, Makoto stole away the camera and began taking photos. On the 24th of June, Makoto went missing. She had been playing demon tag with 4 of her friends using the camera. All of them vanished in the mountains. No trace of them could ever be found. And soon after, Yae took her own life by hanging herself from a tree in the garden. She was tormented by the spirits of the mansion, and at the end, she could see them even without the camera. Ryozo found the blinding mask, and he took it to the demon mouth. When he opened it, it was the corrupted and vile spirit of Kirie that killed him. On July 3rd, the police were contacted about 3 missing children.
Again, emphasizing the fact that those who are killed in a ritual that they're not prepared for become a deadly curse due to their strong emotions. And a girl like Kirie had very strong emotions to the fact that they manifest and she got corrupted like this.
Yep.
This is why people ought not to mess with things like this. And again, this is key reason why I purged this from my domains. You'll never again see stuff like this. Well, until now, because let's just say that there are ways of conjuring spirits and protecting yourself.
It's not clear if a new set of children had gone missing that day or what became of the 4 kids that went missing in June, but that's when official records of disappearances began. None of Makoto's friends were ever found, but she was. 3 days after searches began, Makoto was found by a local man called Mr. Hinasaki. She looked exhausted and disoriented, but she was uninjured. Makoto had no idea what happened to her missing friends. The 7-year-old girl was informally adopted by Mr. Hinasaki. Not much is known about him, but he did provide a stable home for Makoto and never presumed to step in as her father. Makoto Munakata grew up, got married, and had a daughter named Miyuki. Much like her grandmother Yae, Miyuki was sickly and very spiritually attuned. She was described as a weak and nervous person, but as she grew, she was able to suppress that extra sense. She'd inherited
those senses being a little too much for her, and she's being overloaded, which is why she was very sickly.
She knew that it could cause her mental state harm, and it could influence her. She tried to live a mostly normal life, but she was seen as heretical and weird by those around her. She went on to marry into the Hinasaki family, actually. She married a man named Masato Hinasaki, who was one of her professors. They had studied that special camera together and had traveled the region studying various ruins. The two went on to have 2 kids that they named Mafuyu and Miku. But Masato was a poor husband and a terrible father. He was never really present and was neglectful of his family, which tore his wife's heart apart. Miyuki raised Mafuyu and Miku as best as she could, but as time wore on, she became more and more ill, just like her grandmother had. When her children began to show signs of spiritual attunement, she helped them hide and suppress it so that they could have normal lives. At some point, Miyuki's husband, and the father of her children, died out in the field. It was just a random accident during his work. The years carried on, and Miyuki became more unwell. She started using her old special camera as a hobby, but it began to damage her mind and bring her spiritual senses back.
There we go.
She obsessively used
full
it
circle with that damn camera.
but nobody knew what was causing her intense decline. Her oldest, Mafuyu, was old enough that he wasn't really around home anymore, and the younger sibling, Miku, was too young to process her mother's actions. Miyuki could find no hope or salvation. She took her own life by hanging herself in the garden, just as Yae had done years before at the Himuro Mansion.
This reminds me of the final moments with you falling into the well, or being thrown in the well, I should be saying. This cycle keeps constantly repeating. And humans are so unaware that they don't realize the reason for these repeated occurrences. Like, this entire area should be completely sealed off from the populace, but it isn't. Because it's in such an area that anybody with any common sense wouldn't make the trek to actually do anything like that.
Yep.
Hence why we have things like this keep happening.
It was Miku that found her. The young girl was, of course, devastated, but her brother Mafuyu stepped in and made sure that his little sister was well taken care of. He raised her and acted as both mother and father figure to her. Mafuyu saw to his mother's affairs and her possessions. From her journal, he learned more about their spiritual attunements, which seemed to have affected Miku more than himself, and he learned about the camera. He kept these things hidden from Miku, not out of anything malicious, but just to protect his little sister. In 1986, when
I don't
Miku
know,
was
how
about
about
17,
throwing it
she
somewhere
began
where people
preparing
can't
for
find
higher
it?
education.
Fucking
Mafuyu was in his
burying that
20s
shit.
and working at a publishing
Or destroying
company
it.
under a writer named Junsei Takamine.
But again, if you try to
Takamine
destroy
was
something
needing
like that,
big,
there's
juicy
a high
story for
chance
his
you will
next
get
book,
possessed
and
by
he
it.
decided that it would come from the Himuro
Or
Mansion.
consequences.
Takamine knew of the now
There are
long
always
dead
consequences for your
Munakata
actions.
and his work covering the mansion, but he and his team couldn't
Now
find
it
any
is
of Ryo's writings.
generational
The mountain was
consequences.
well known for a sprawling number of reported murders, which made for the perfect topic. The masses would just eat up all the carnage and gore. In August of 1986, an earthquake hit the mountain. Local news sources strangely wrote about the destruction of the 5 holy mirrors, which represented protection over the region. Weird. Takamine believed that the earthquake itself was linked to something within the mansion, and he wanted to put it all into a book. So Takamine, his editor Koji, and his assistant Tomo all went to the mansion together on September 9th. When they arrived in the area, the locals were skittish and unhelpful. They warned the small team away from the mansion, but by nightfall, they'd found it. When they arrived, the entrance to the mansion was broken. They had to break their own way in. Their explorations began promptly the next morning. So did the terrible troubles. Tomo was more spiritually sensitive than Takamine or Koji, and she started feeling and seeing some really frightening things on the first day. The group found disturbing photographs in a chest. One of them was a group of children playing demon tag. There was something terrifying about it. Later that evening,
there it goes
Tomo
again.
saw a woman in front of a mirror near the entrance with long hair and a white kimono. She had ropes tied around her limbs that she dragged as she walked. The next morning, Tomo saw the female in the white kimono again, and it seemed like she was trying to tell Tomo something. She caught that the spirit's name was Kirie, but Tomo was desperately afraid of her and felt that she should not get any closer to the being. By that evening, the editor Koji was gone. Takamine and Tomo looked all over the huge estate, but they found no sign of him. Throughout the day, he had been talking about more ropes, but they'd all been under a lot of stress. They searched high and low, but it was like he just vanished into thin air. But still, they didn't abandon the mansion to seek help. Takamine and Tomo stayed. On the next day, the 12th of September, early in the morning, Tomo and Takamine found Koji. His limbs and head had been torn off his body. A photo of Koji's body was left on the corpse, and in it, Takamine saw that his limbs appeared to have ropes tied around them. He was able to connect the dots back to the rope shrine maiden, but he couldn't put the whole puzzle together. Not long after they found Koji's body, Tomo started sensing children around her playing demon tag. She believed that they were the children that played with Makoto so long ago. At some point, she became separated from Takamine, and she found a room full of severed heads. Somehow, she knew that it was done by the leader of the Himuro family.
The
They were
fact
all
that he
trying to
kept
tell
the
her
severed
something, but she
heads.
couldn't make out what. Over the course of that day,
It didn't think that,
Tomo
I don't
lost touch
know,
with reality
burn
and
them
became inconsolable. She saw the rush of people throughout the
and
mansion.
purify the
Whenever it
area.
happened, she kept seeing Kirie. Her mind kept returning
Yet
to the
another
broken,
stupidity
holy
of
mirror
humans
pieces. She
not
believed
knowing
they
how
were the key
to
to everything, and she had to tell
properly
Takamine how to break
dispose.
the curse on the mansion. The two found each other again, but all she could get out was babbling nonsense. Finally, the next day, on the 13th of September, Takamine decided that they needed to leave the mansion. But by then, Tomo was in such terrible shape that he couldn't even get her to move. So,
Again, at this point,
for a way
somebody
out
needs
all
to
on his
just
own. But
close
it
off
was
the damn
far too
mansion.
late. He couldn't find an exit. The spirits and the curse of the mountain wouldn't let him leave. When he found there was no way out, he went back to Tomo, only to find her being strangled to death in a courtyard by the vengeful spirit of Kirie. He would be next, he knew. But still, he didn't give up. He found Tomo's notes about the pieces of the holy mirror. Her writing said that the complete true mirror had been
Well, at least
broken
this
long
kid has
ago,
determination.
and that the earthquake that hit a month prior were just the symptoms of trouble brewing in the mountain. The earthquake had not broken the complete mirror. It could be reassembled and used to stop whatever was happening. Over the course of a day, Takamine found 4 of the 5 mirror pieces.
Crucify
He
man.
believed that he knew where the 5th one was, but he failed to write down that bit of information in his notes. He left a final note detailing his plan, and he asked whoever found it to find Tomo's body and to give her a decent burial. Takamine never made it to the 5th piece. Kirie found him, and he died a terrible death within one of the shrines. And then, once again, Himuro Mansion laid empty.
Yes, it did. Chapter 3. Oh boy. Again, I said all I need to say about that, but yeah, like seriously, somebody just close the damn thing. Either close it or ritual burn it, because there are only a few ways that you can possibly get rid of something like this. And unfortunately, a lot of the actual methods, most humans cannot do. You are a vengeful spirit. How many times do you feel like you've been conjured, Sadako? Lost track of counting, huh? Well, anyways, let's get back to it. This is chapter 3. Let's see what nonsense is going on.
Missing persons reports were filed. No bodies were found. Mafuyu Hinasaki immediately noticed when Takamine, Koji, and Tomo vanished. He held Takamine in high regard, and when investigations into the disappearance
No bodies were found yet. Somebody was able to find severed heads. Okay.
Mafuyu told his little sister Miku that he had a lead on where Takamine had gone to.
1986.
Strange camera, fully aware of its capabilities, and he went to Himuro Mansion alone on September 24th, 1986. Most folk with common sense would take one look at this place and nope the hot hell out, but not Mafuyu and the countless victims that came before him. Mafuyu walked right into the mansion in the dead of night, turned on his flashlight, and started searching. Very little sense of self-preservation in this one. There was a cacophony of moaning men echoing around the building. Despite it all, Mafuyu pressed on, intent on finding his peers. Before going too far, he decides that he'll take notes and leave them on his path, just in case someone comes looking for him. And down the rope hallway, Mafuyu finds his first apparition. A male figure slowly walking alone, which he's not the photograph of.
Are definitely going to find in this place.
He doesn't miss a step, he doesn't turn around. He keeps pushing farther into the mansion with no hesitation. Even when he comes across more spirits, Mafuyu just takes his picture and keeps going. One of Mr. Takamine's research notebooks is out in the open, and touching it gives Mafuyu a flash of past events, of things they unknowingly encountered. Spirits were creeping on them as soon as they arrived, though they couldn't see them. Numerous hands reaching out of the darkness for them, and no one saw the corrupted spirit of the rope shrine maiden Kirie watching them down a corridor. When Mafuyu's senses return, an angry spirit is approaching him with foul intent. His mother's camera repels it, saving his life, and cueing him in on just how to handle aggressive spirits. From here on, Mafuyu is open game to anything that tracks him down within the mansion, and there's no end to the enraged spirits that want to disembowel him.
The exact same thing that'll get you murdered by the shy guy.
If even 1% of them were trapped here and angry, it'd still spell trouble for anyone here to explore. After a series of dead ends, Mafuyu finds himself back in the rope hallway, and someone is waiting for him. Kirie. 2 weeks later, Mafuyu's little sister takes action. Miku was done waiting for Mafuyu to pop back up. He had told her and left her a note detailing where he'd gone, and she was going to follow. It led her right to Himuro Mansion, in the dead of night. And just like her brother, she didn't even give a second consideration to what she was doing. She waltzed right on in. Miku was far more spiritually sensitive than her brother, and she started getting disturbing flashes as soon as she was in the foyer. The pure spirit of Kirie called to her asking for help. Then, not far away, she saw the visage of the editor Koji and found a note from him. It was shortly before his death when he started seeing ropes appearing around his limbs and images. Down that rope hallway, Miku finds her mother's special camera that Mafuyu had brought with him. And now the fun can really begin. Touching it, she sees something happen to
here we
Mafuyu.
go.
He was running down a hall with ghostly arms trying to grab him. A young woman was in pursuit. A young woman that Miku glimpses in a mirror when she snaps back to her senses. Well, Mafuyu left his camera here with a note that outlines a bit of the history of the mansion, and nothing that he entails.
Let's see. Himuro Mansion was once the home of a large landowner that controlled vast areas of land. They also say that the site held some special significance that had to do with Shinto rituals of the region. I can't find any detailed books about these Shinto rituals though. Yeah, because they shouldn't be written about. Finding out about them just causes more issues to begin with. Then again, also, we'll see.
Is promising. If it wasn't extremely clear to Miku,
September 24th. I've had a bad feeling ever since I came to this mansion. I'm leaving notes in this notebook just in case anything happens to me. I've got to find Mr. Takamine and the others fast. I hope it's not too late. Far too late.
before than it should be now. This place is bad news. There are certain things that just shouldn't be tampered with. Ouija boards, voodoo, and haunted Japanese mansions with a history of strangling rituals and mass murder. Printed on a t-shirt, I stand by it. There's a ghost corpse dangling on a beam.
That's why I say get rid of it.
How does that statement make you feel? Because this will become the new norm for Miku as she goes through the Himuro Mansion. Grisly deaths captured in time that only she can see through her mother's camera. But as so many before her have witnessed, it's not just corpses and sad spirits here. There are many angry and confused souls that try to latch onto or lash out against her, and her only defense against it is that camera, which means she has to look at them. She has to face them down, and if she can't outright see them through the lens, she doesn't just get to look away and guess, she has to seek out the horror. Some of them scream, others will cry and wail, some beg for help, and ever present is the threat of running out of film. The only reprieve she'll get is from the pure spirit of Kirie, who desperately wishes that someone would cleanse the mansion and free the lost spirits within it. And the only aid she'll receive is from the past, people who came before and left behind messages, tapes, and notes that will help her piece together the story. The front section of the mansion is slow and difficult. She struggles to get her bearings, learn the rules of the spirits, and the estate itself is a bit of a puzzle. Doors are barred or locked, stairs are collapsed, spirits will emerge from nowhere and attack, and sometimes she has to take images of certain areas to reveal secrets in other places of the mansion. It requires backtracking and remembering prior locations and objects within them. The first death Miku has to contend with is Koji. She saw visions of him trying to hide from the spirits trying to flee. She finds a photograph that depicts ropes around his limbs. The poor, poor man. He was the first of Mafuyu's peers to be killed. The closer she gets to realizing the full story, the more his hostile spirit appears. And shortly after, Tomo's spirit begins to appear. She and Takamine had seen photos with ropes around his limbs, and they'd found his body after he'd been torn apart. So Tomo knew what those ropes meant. Her notes, too, are scattered around the estate. Miku can piece together her sad decline, made all the more tragic by her pensiveness in coming here in the first place. It felt wrong to her, but she wanted to work with Takamine. Every step will be more difficult than the last, each angry spirit more dangerous, and ever faintly in the distance are the cries of those who have met violent deaths here. This place is hell, and Miku refuses to back down. But let's be honest, even if she panicked and wanted to flee, Kirie wouldn't let her go, not at this point. She's learned of the strangling ritual and the rope shrine maiden, how Koji was torn apart, that Tomo was tortured and strangled in a courtyard, and the man named Takamine was murdered in a shrine. All by the same terrible spirit in the white kimono named Kirie. Mafuyu had come here to find them, and if these were the fates they'd met, then what happened to her brother? Miku learned of the 5 mirror pieces as well, and began searching them out around the mansion. Her first night came to a head when she solved the mystery of one of the Buddha shrines, and she found her first mirror piece. At this point, she knows that these are important and will help cleanse this wretched place. But when she has the first piece, Kirie appears. She is so powerful within this mountain that she uses mirrors to pass between places and is fully tangible before Miku. The confrontation is a short one. Miku has nowhere to run, and Kirie's pursuit will never cease. The rope maiden catches her prey, but Miku does not die. Something saves the teenager, or perhaps Kirie spares her. With the terrible spirit's touch, Miku sees the rope ritual taking place, and she is the victim. Miku dreams of demon tag being played around her, as though she were the blinded maiden. There's nothing innocent about this game. It victimized so many little girls. She awakens within a doll room, and there are ghastly ropes around her wrists. What happened to Koji, Tomo, and Takamine is happening to her. She might not have to face death yet, but this is a mark of what is to come. She will be strangled. She lost a full day after Kirie caught her. Now, it's the second night. But the first dilemma. A little shit has stolen her mirror piece, and she has to get that back from them. During this night, Miku is made aware of the Munakata family and their lives here in the mansion. The father, Ryoza, was a writer that became interested in the mansion after visiting the area. His wife, Yae, was a sickly, frail woman. Their daughter, Makoto, did well in the area, and she made many friends with the local kids. But tragedy came to them when Makoto found that strange camera and the spirits of the mountain began to haunt the family. The little girl went missing. Yae hung herself, driven insane by losing her daughter and using that strange camera too much. And Ryoza was killed by Kirie in the underground, near the demon mouth. He'd managed to open it with the blinding mask, but then it was game over for him. The little asshole that stole the mirror piece is eventually tracked down and proves to be a bit of an obstacle to banish. Far more dangerous and wily than one would have expected of a child. The sounds of children laughing and calling for help at the same time is just really extremely off-putting. But Miku manages to banish the spirit and reclaim the vitally important piece of mirror. She's uncovered much of the estate grounds by now, at least what's above ground, and the journey through it is slow and difficult. Macabre puzzles are around each corner, and the spirit hostility from the previous night seems far more intense now. The first great horror of the night comes from witnessing part of the past, the blinding ritual. Before the strangling ritual was held, the maiden selected 10 years prior from demon tag is taken away from her family, and the blinding mask is forced upon her face. Her blood would be part of the key into the demon mouth, and once her part was played, her fate was left a mystery. But a small hope is found when Miku comes across a note left by Mafuyu. He says that the woman in the white kimono, Kirie, she didn't kill him, she let him go, and he's trying to find a way to appease her so that nobody else is harmed by her. So there's a very good chance that her brother is still alive on the mountain somewhere. One of the few beautiful places left here is the room where the blinding ritual was held. It feels pristine all these many years after its final use, and the mask itself is safely stored here. She doesn't know it yet, but this will be deviously useful very soon. It takes some fumbling around to make heads or tails of where to go next, but Miku eventually finds herself within the demon mouth. There are beings of the past here, waiting for anyone that can be preyed upon. A blinded maiden from long ago attacks. It's not the first time the wailing calls of the blinded have called to Miku, but she knows fully what happened to them now. Their calls of pain were because of the mask that was forced onto them. They cry over their eyes because they were
Yeah, I guess this stuff is just getting to her. Anyways, back to it.
pierced. Miku sends the spirit away, but banishment doesn't ease their pain. Their screams and cries continue until the very bitter end. Placing the blinding mask into the door lock shows Miku the death of Ryozo. By this point, his daughter was missing and his wife had taken her own life.
There it is.
There would be no leaving this mansion, and he pursued the depths of the mountain to uncover its secrets. His death was certainly no surprise, and now stands as a warning to Miku of what lies ahead. She finds his mummified body just past the gate, still grasping a piece of the holy mirror. Now she has two, and once again Kirie appears. Miku tries to fight back this time to take a photo of the spirit, but nothing she does affects her. Kirie is
far too powerful
so Miku is
at the
forced to
moment.
run through the underground, forced to flee. But the dead block her way to freedom, preventing her from escaping. Kirie once again places her hands upon Miku, taking her consciousness away. In her dreams, she sees suffering and panic. Kirie being torn apart, the strangling ritual taking place, the dead around the mansion after the calamity began, the family leader hunting people down, the Himuro family and those that called the mountain home all wiped out in one terrible night. When
Yeah,
next she
psych.
awakens, it is
The
the
entire
full moon.
family is so
Kirie has not
psychotic
yet
that they
killed her, but
constantly
there are
torture
ropes of
each
pain
other.
around her ankles now. She's back before the demon mouth. Once again venturing in, Ryoza's body is gone and she has only one path to follow. It takes her to a pile of fallen rocks that she cannot pass, but on the other side of it she sees her brother. He doesn't respond to her though. When she calls to him, he just walks away, like he doesn't even register that she's there. This night, Miku learns more about the calamity itself and the major loss of life that took place when Kirie failed as
Yep.
the Rope Shrine Maiden.
Wait, hold
It was all
on, go
a
back
very
real
personal.
quick. The calamity. Let's see. In the year 1837, on the 13th day of the 12th month, the strangling ritual failed and caused the calamity. Malice escaped, and 1,347 souls were lost. The fact that they even had to keep constantly doing that is the reason why there were so many souls in the first place.
When Kirie failed as the Rope Shrine Maiden. It was all a very personal family affair, and it's right to call it a calamity. There was so much pain for everyone involved. With any way forward blocked now, Miku tries to exit the band path, but the pure spirit of Kirie intervenes and shows her a scrap of research that Ryozo had on him when he died. It was about the Moon Shrine, a place that Miku had been to before, but there was nothing there. But the note details that at the bottom of the well is a door, which the Rope Shrine Maiden would follow to reach the Hellgate. So while this path may be blocked off, there is still the Moon Shrine path that she can follow. Good news. She'll need to find it, and she'll need a key, but this is wonderful given the circumstances. It will require some investigation, though. Miku has trekked and backtracked enough throughout the estate that it's easier for her to make her way to where she needs to be. Though, if memory serves, there was the issue of the well leading into the Moon Shrine being covered up. Without any way around that, she won't even be able to reach it. En route, Miku finds another Buddha room, which held ceremonial ropes used in the strangling rituals. Deciphering its secrets gets her a strange carved stone, and with that, a memory from the past.
It's
It's of the
the
Himuro
strange
family leader
character.
chasing a man down within this room after he was driven mad by the malice of the calamity. He'd brutally murdered countless from his own family that night, and now his spirit will try to do the same to Miku. While he chases her around, he says terrible things and wishes death upon the girl. There's no guilt felt in banishing this fetid being. It's hard to say what he was like in life, but in death he is a righteous bastard, and casting him away allows her to proceed on. At the Cherry Atrium, that strange teal carved stone is the key to unlocking another shrine door, Progress. And within this strange shrine is a cabinet, and with that is, weirdly, another research scrap from that man Ryozo. It details a mystery involving this cabinet, and it's linked to the Moonwell. Well, that is just what Miku needs. To unlock the mechanisms will allow access to the well. Miku needs the symbols of the 4 masked priests and the Himuro family leader's seal. Ryozo was never quite able to figure it out, since the old priests and the family master were long dead. But taking photos of the pedestals around the cabinet reveal each location that Miku can find these pieces at. It will take her back out into the Cherry Atrium just outside, the square garden, the backyard near the well, and a place called the Abyss. Each stop will require fighting the spirits of the long-dead priests, though their death calls are encouraging Miku to hurry, to carry on, to cleanse this place, to see the old ritual complete. Miku learns why Kirie failed, that she fell in love, became attached to the world. In the priests' confusions, they questioned why Kirie did this. How could this have even happened? Putting their
Because she's a
the
normal
shrine doesn't
girl.
quite have the results one might expect. Blood begins to seep from the front of it, creating a trail for her to follow. It leads her all the way back into the Grand Hall. The Himuro family master is back. He uses the heads of his victims against her this time, and takes lethal slashes at her as they chase one another around the hall. It's one hell of a fight, but Miku prevails, barely. Once he's banished, she claims the Master's Seal, the last thing that she needs to unlock the Buddha Shrine so that she can descend into the well. At the bottom of it, Miku finds another piece of the mirror. Her collection is nearly complete, and just as before, Kirie appears to chase the girl down. Miku tries to flee, does her best to escape by making it back up out of the well, but there's no way that Kirie is just going to give up. Ropes have appeared on her wrists and her ankles, and next will be her throat. Just before Kirie reaches her, at the top of the well, the good part of the Rope Shrine Maiden appears and takes Miku's
there
hand.
it is.
She will protect Miku from herself, shield her from any more harm. In her dreams, the good part of Kirie calls to Miku, desperately asking her for help. And when next she awakens, it's the fourth and final night. Greeting her once again as she awakens
Finally.
is Kirie, the one with that dead-eyed stare. The spirit points her towards a kodo to nudge Miku in the right direction, and then she's gone. Within this room is some sheet music that, luckily, she can read. It's a familiar song that she can pick out on the kodo. Playing it opens one of the doors leading up into the attic, because nothing bad ever happens in an attic. A few suspicious holes
Everything bad happens in
a
the
traumatic memory later. This path leads Miku to a strange caged room. This is where the Rope Shrine Maidens spent most of their lives, until their complete dedication and compliance was gained. They couldn't be allowed to have earthly ties, so they were imprisoned here. Kirie's old diary still remains all these years later. The priests knew of her attachments to a certain young man. They'd made sure that he was killed and lied to her about his fate. But their evil deeds didn't fix anything. Everything fell apart in the end. The good spirit of Kirie left Miku a gift. Another part of the Holy Mirror. She's just missing one.
Interesting.
And she left her the Rope Shrine Maiden's hairpin, which was the key to the Maiden's path in the well. Without this, Miku would have been dead in the water, so to speak. And then she treats Miku to a not-safe-for-work flashback when she held the hand of a young man in a courtyard so long ago. It's unfortunate that this was the catalyst for over 1,800 people's deaths, but again, I guess just take the happiness where you can get it. But this young fellow from the past, he looks a lot like Mafuyu, which puts into perspective perhaps why Kirie hasn't murdered Mafuyu. But that sure as hell doesn't mean that he's safe. And, well, he might be in some serious trouble if an evil spirit is wanting to claim him for eternity. Consent is important, even for ghosts. As Miku is leaving, she spots the good spirit of Kirie again, sort of leading her down the hall. But the evil aspect of the maiden isn't far behind. She again pursues, but nothing gets in Miku's way this time. Her path is clear to flee. There's zero hesitation in it. She knows that she cannot stop Kirie. She knows that Kirie will tear her apart if she gets her hands on her. All the teenager can do is run away just to buy more time. She does manage to lose Kirie outside and beelines back for that shrine that led down into the blue well. She had been cut off from proceeding before, but this time she has a clear path and the key for it. It leads Miku to the banned path, where the family leader, 4 priests, family congregants, and the Rope Shrine Maiden continued on to carry out the strangling ritual. While the congregants waited outside beyond closed doors, the priest and the family leader killed the maiden. Miku sees Kirie's death on the altar. It was so apparent that the process was corrupted, but there was no other choice. It was too late to find another maiden. And all these years later, the altar is still stained red from the many victims that it took. Down one last hallway, Miku reaches her final destination, the Hellgate itself. With bloody ropes in hand,
there we go.
Priests, family leader, and remaining congregants came here to change out the ropes. The Holy Mirror repelled any spirits who might try to escape while they worked, but Kirie had sabotaged the mirror to break, and she herself was an unsuitable Rope Shrine Maiden. The rope change was a failure, and the gates of hell swung open, malice poured out, and the calamity took place. Mafuyu is here, but the lights aren't on, so to speak. He's unresponsive, just standing there, staring. And the evil aspect of Kirie shows herself to be possessive over him, refusing to let him act though he's trying to reach out for his sister. Rather than allow Miku to be a distraction, Kirie absorbs the young man into herself, and then attacks his sister. One last time. There's no escape route. Miku sprints to put as much distance as possible between herself and Kirie. Any hits that she lands can be lethal, so Miku needs to be aware of where she is and act as aggressive as possible. And a few times Kirie gets damn close to her, but in the end, Kirie is dangerous, but she's not difficult to take down. Miku lays a beatdown on her, but in retaliation, Kirie lashes out and breaks the special camera. She can't outright win, she'll break the rules. And now there's some real trouble because Miku doesn't have any defenses or the final piece of the Holy Mirror. But the good spirit of Kirie once again intervenes. She shows Miku that the final piece of the Holy Mirror was in the camera, and now that it's busted, she only needs to pick up that final piece. Miku
think about it, there's something about you
the rest of the pieces emit a strange light and pull itself together into its complete form. In its proper
what this spirit is doing with the boy,
all the
huh?
malice within Kirie back into hell. Now freed from the influence of evil, Kirie is in her natural form, and the remaining good spirit steps forward to remind her of her obligations.
I
She
see.
must still complete the strangling ritual and hold shut the gates of hell. And this time, she will eternally commit to this torment. Her chance at a peaceful death has long since passed. Her spirit will remain here, hanging before the Hellgate, keeping it closed. She
Again,
is truly committed to her fate now.
none
She
of this
tells
stuff
Miku
should be
and Mafuyu
happening to you
leave her
girls.
here, to flee the mansion. The estate is beginning to crumble, and they don't have very long to make it out. But Mafuyu decides to stay. He will die with Kirie at his side, and he will remain here eternally to help her fulfill this terrible obligation. He just tells Miku to go on without him. And then she's alone.
What the hell are you doing, boy?
In a strange dream, she hears Mafuyu speaking to her, explaining his decision. He's felt Kirie's sadness, and he knows her lonely fate. She will hang here in perpetual torment, keeping the gate closed. And if he can offer her any reprieve from that, then he will gladly stay at her side. When she awakens, she's free from Himuro Mansion, and so are all those that died here during and after
The spirits have finally been allowed to
tiny lights
rest.
float up into the clear sky,
Mhm.
finally able to venture on to where they belong. And after that night, Miku stopped seeing things that other people could not see.
AKA, no longer spiritually attuned, because after that ordeal, it's about time that she no longer needs those abilities. Oh boy. Like I said, all this stuff is absolute nonsense. From born of humans coming in contact with the spirit realm and being taught the wrong way to deal with them, or not being taught at all and just finding the dumbest way to deal with them possible. Hence why this stuff happens.
Yeah.
Why we have girls ending up just like Sadako here. By the way, if you guys want to know of how many victims Sadako had of the importance and not how many she actually had, it would be 43 different victims accounted for. A lot of them dealing with heart attacks, but of course a few of them she did get a bit creative, I see.
Yeah.
Being said though, there's still much more of this lore that's still yet to be uncovered, because this is the first half we reacted to, which means that this isn't the only time you guys will be seeing Sadako, because we still have much to cover and we have an entire month to try to cover it. But there's also another reason why we're looking at these, because I do plan to get into the Fatal Frame series, and Sadako here will be my guest of honor. And we might have another one soon. That being said, there are some things that I need to look into before the next half, before we actually get started. So I'll be working on this one here to get her a little more accustomed to everything. So my children, if you guys enjoyed this and you're looking forward to more deep dives into this series, because yeah, if you are interested in these spiritual rituals and stuff like that, things that you guys are gladly safely away from thanks to me, then make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and look forward to more live reactions. And of course, we will be getting to the gameplay relatively soon. Until then, my children, stay tuned.
Goodbye.